evening, I'm Kathy Lewis, and here's what matters tonight. With the coming extinction of the incandescent light bulb, more of us are going green whether we want to or not. But some in Hampton Roads aren't fresh converts to going green. They've been true believers for a very long time. Trina Duncan and Stuart Rose had a vision for a green home, and when we say green, we really mean it. Lisa Godley visited their garden atrium in Poquoson.
From outside of Stu Duncan and Trina Rose's Poquoson home, there's not a lot to indicate that it's much different from a traditional home. But once inside, you quickly realize there's a big difference.
Initially, we just thought it'd be kind of fun to have plants in the center of a house, but what we've found out is it does a lot for oxygen levels. And so what it does is allows us to sleep better because your oxygen levels are higher, takes pollutants out of the air, and makes things more comfortable for people.
Their large atrium not only gives them cleaner air to breathe, but fresh tropical fruit grown right outside their bedroom door. And there's another bonus. Their greenhouse is unusually quiet.
A lot of traffic outside, but you don't hear it. And atrium houses with a skylight are incredibly quiet. And people said, well, you know, you're right on a fairly busy street. And it's like, yeah, but there's no way to know it.
Stu and Trina first started thinking about what they could do to help the environment in the early 90s. Stu says they started seeing the word sustainability and thought it was just another catchphrase until they started to read up on how we were depleting our resources.
The concept of how do you burn out an entire planet it's unthinkable. And so we said, what can we do? And we said, well, everybody has to have a house. Can we create a house that is totally sustainable? That if you built 1 million of them, you wouldn't deplete the Earth's resources to either build it or to live in it. This is, you know, power consumption, that type of thing.
The couple's next question was, if they built it, could they get it to compete with traditional housing? And just as important, could they make it beautiful? Trina says that wasn't even the most challenging part.
The biggest challenge, banks, getting financing on something that's different, was probably the most difficult thing on the whole project.
The banks were more than willing to finance a traditional home, but not a sustainable home. Most said they were doing something that was just too different. Finally, they found a bank to say yes, and they could build. Their home is incredibly well insulated. It and all other homes in the Garden Atrium's community are built with no windows on the north wall to block summer sun and winter wind. The panels on the roof generate current. An inverter transforms that power, which is used throughout the house. What they don't use, they store and sell back to the power company. One of the beauties of living in a sustainable home is that there are virtually no utility bills. For example, having to provide electricity for a home of this size would normally cost between $500 and $1,000. But in this house, it's just $45 a month. They harvest their own rainwater, which they use to water their plants and flush their toilets. They grow their own herbs, fruits, and vegetables and have decorated their homes with products that do not emit gases, like cabinets made of solid wood, natural wool carpeting with lanolin, and zero volatile organic compound or VOC paint. The rooms that surround their tropical paradise are plate glass to eliminate sound.
And then I can drop this, and what do we have? You have visual privacy, but light still comes through. It's translucent, and I can still see the sky to see if it's going to rain or if the moon is out, that kind of a thing.
Stu and Trina's 4,900 square foot home may be the largest of its kind on their block, but it's certainly not the only one. This 2,300 square foot home is one of 4 built on the same concept. It even has its own banana tree. To build this home would cost just over $500,000. Some say that's a lot, but keep in mind, the owner doesn't have to pay high utility bills. At least 3 more homes are scheduled to be built in the community in the near future, bringing the total number to 7. Stu says they realize that 7 homes won't change the world, but
if we do it and they sell and other home builders come along and say, geez, I'd like to build 50 and I'd like 20, we'll help them. But that's the only way to get numbers up to try to make a difference.
For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
Isn't that amazing? And we're happy to have Trina Duncan and Stuart Rose with us tonight. They are the co-developers of the garden atriums, and you heard them say that there are more on the drawing boards. We're also glad to have with us today Skip Stiles, who's the Executive Director of Wetlands Watch, and he's renovating his own home for sustainability. He didn't really want to have to renovate it, but he had a fire in the home, so he took the opportunity that some of us are offered from time to time to do something a little bit different. Amanda Mason is with us tonight as well, and she is proof positive that sustainability is good business. She is the co-owner of a new store called Green Alternatives, and thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. I just have to start out with you, Trina and Stu, because that video is, your house is beautiful, and I've had the pleasure of visiting in your home. It really is just it's a physically beautiful space that is also sustainable. How did you come up with this vision? You all were in Washington, D.C., working hard and living a great life, and so what's the path from Washington to Poquoson?
One of the services we provide to our clients as consultants is strategic planning, so we have to read a lot of trends literature.
Yeah.
And in the early 90s, we saw a growing trend on sustainability, which literally meant how do you sustain? And when issues come up, all of us say, well, this is one government will deal with, this is one somebody, and this is one we said, let's take a shot at. And so we said, can we create a house that not only can take care of itself, 100%, it's what's called net zero, but also one that will compete with traditional housing in the open marketplace. And I developed a concept. I'm an architect. We also know a lot of specialists around the country, and we pulled them together for this project.
So why didn't you do it in D.C.?
I couldn't get a coach. When you do something like this, you're committing all your personal resources. And every business has little twists.
Sure.
And I called the Home Builders Association. They gave me the 25 most progressive, and not one would meet with us. And we weren't asking for money, counsel. And we found one down here who said, bring your drawings and I'll give you advice.
Wow.
And then he also looked at us and said, now, you know, you guys are being kind of pioneers, and pioneers are people with arrows in their back. So if it doesn't work, don't blame me. But he was the one that said, go to Poquoson. It has the highest per capita income. And go to this site. You don't have to build 50. 7 will demonstrate whether or not they're marketable. And so why are we here? It's really because we found somebody who would agree to coach us.
That's really interesting. And you know, the truth of when we think about sustainability, and there's a lot of terminology we're throwing around here, sustainability and going green. I mean, these are sort of two terms. Do you use what does sustainability mean?
Well, you hear a lot of, it's like seeing a sale that says 20% off, and you wonder off of what. And instead of low fat, how about no fat? That's measurable. What I like for sustainable is I can do it over and over. So for instance, if you've ever been to Bermuda, every building in Bermuda has a cistern. It's required by building code. And if your house runs dry, and they typically do about once a year, you call for the water truck and it refills you. But the rate at which the water truck takes water from their aquifer is less than the rate at which the aquifer recharges, meaning they can go on indefinitely. That's sustainable.
That's sustainability. Yeah.
And so we looked at sustainability saying, well, there's heating, there's cooling, there's electric power, there's water, there's land use, there's air quality, there's going to be food. And we said for each one of these, how do we come out with what's called net zero? So we generate the power that we need 100%.
And I loved what you said in Lisa's report about, you look at these things as a sort of a global issue, and they feel so overwhelming and so daunting. But when you look at it from the perspective of what individuals can do, it makes a difference. We're seeing some video now of the garden home and the garden itself out in the back. Trina, what excites you about this whole concept of sustainability? Because I think a lot of people look at it as, gosh, great, we're saving money on the electric bill, well done. But for you, it's a lot more than that.
It is more than that. To me, it's how do we live as humans that are probably more connected to the earth? Because I think it's really important for all of us to really feel that connection so that we then know what to do and how to do it.
That sounds almost instinctive at some level.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, in terms of being connected to the world around you. We just saw some video of your garden back there. What are you growing in the garden?
Oh, just about everything you can name. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, okra, what else? Zucchini,
so you really,
tomatoes.
You really are sort of living this across your whole life.
Trying to. Some places are easier than others to do it, but yeah.
And Skip Stiles is with us tonight as well, and Skip is somebody who unfortunately had a fire at your home. I'm sorry about that, but like many things in life, you have this opportunity to sort of look at it and think about doing a new thing, and that's what you've decided to do in your own renovation.
Yeah, the house is basically down to the studs and rafters, and once it got to that point, we decided, all right, let's walk the walk and see if we can take an old 1916 house and basically bring it to 2016 standards in terms of environment, energy, the whole 9 yards. So it was an opportunity.
Right.
I wouldn't wish this opportunity on anyone.
Of course not, yes.
And we're also trying to push some of these ideas out. The developer we're working with wants to do more of these projects, and we're trying to do a little bit of education with the public as well. We have a blog. We have some other ways that we're trying to get the word out, because we're, as Stu said, you know, you're sort of a pioneer when you do this stuff. It's not easy finding subcontractors and materials and the kinds of things that you need.
And they talked about, both of them talked about the whole issue of finding a banker who would go along with it. You've had the same issues trying to find equipment, material, subcontractors.
Right,
that sort of thing.
yeah, the financing comes from the insurance in our pockets, but in terms of finding some of the materials that we need, we were trying to find certified lumber. The developer and I went to 5 different.
Certified lumber meaning?
It's harvested sustainably,
okay.
As Stu was saying. You know, they basically go out and certify that the operation can sustain itself in perpetuity. And we went to 5 different lumber yards, and nobody knew what we were talking about. Finally, some fella at 84 Lumber said, "I've heard about this," and he tracked it down by the end of the day, and the pallet was there the next day, all the wood we needed.
So you have to work a little bit harder to do this.
It's not easy being green, as Kermit said.
As our good friend Kermit said, indeed. And you know, you've heard Stu and Trina talk about building their homes from the beginning this way. You're trying to take an existing home and do that. Which would you prefer? I guess you haven't had that experience yet, but talking to them,
I think it would be easier, although, again, the challenge is with so much of this area built out, what are we going to do to make the first city sustainable? You're dealing with existing housing stock, so you've got to go in and try to figure out how to do this, and that's part of the interesting challenge of this is
where you go with that,
right.
yeah. And one of the things you can always tell, Stu, you were talking about the idea that this started as some sort of buzzword type of thing that people were talking a lot about. When you have the store, the bricks and mortar store on the street, that's when you know it's really gotten to the point where people are thinking about it and talking about it. Amanda Mason, nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
And Amanda Mason, and I think, is it your mother or your aunt have a store?
It's my mother.
Your mother have a store that is selling sustainability, I guess. What kinds of products do you have?
We have anything from natural personal care products, green cleaning products, organic cotton clothing, a lot of reusable items as opposed to the single-use items. We try and screen all of our products to make sure that they're all sustainable, organic when possible, biodegradable when possible.
And was there a threshold that the interest had to reach in order for you all to decide, okay, now is the moment when we do this? Because other people have tried and just sort of been to the station a little before the train got there.
I think it was more of a personal threshold that met. We really couldn't find the things that we wanted in our own area, and we knew that there were other people that shared the same concerns as us, and we just had a moment that hit us that said, you know, if no one else is going to do it, we were going to do it. And it's something we are so passionate about that it just made it easy, and, well, not that easy, but
yeah, no business is easy, I suppose. But it does speak, I suppose, to the growing community interest in this. You've started these recycling centers, and you're electronics recycling center and the like. You must be hearing from people about this.
Definitely. We have had a very positive reaction from everyone in the community that has come in there. People, especially because we're in such a transient area, that have come from places like California and Washington and Oregon that are very progressive, and they come to a place like Hampton Roads and
they're looking.
They're in culture shock. Yeah, they're like, where is the Whole Foods store and where is the green store? And there aren't those places. So a lot of people are very happy to see a store like this, and it's great because they're able to provide us with input as well from what they've seen.
It is a great point, and we spent some time in your store and encountered a Chris Sabo, who is a customer at Green Alternatives, and talked about why he shops there.
I think every little bit does help. Every person that doesn't throw a plastic bag out of the back of their car is a plastic bag that's not getting caught up in a turbine on a farm. So I try and do the best that I can to help a little bit.
Customer at Green Alternatives, which is a new store open in the Ghent section of Norfolk that sells sustainable products. When we think about this as a lifestyle, and I suppose everyone can enter it at a different place along the line, wherever they're most comfortable. For people who may not be willing to make the commitment that you all have made, or have the option to make that kind of commitment, what could individuals do in the same way that you sort of had that idea, hey, there must be something here that we can do to get at this global problem?
If I just had to look in general at homes, existing housing stock, probably the first two things, one is check your insulation, and insulate. It's what is often called super insulation. You try to go for essentially like a foot in the walls and 2 feet in the roof, which is, ours are R35 in the walls and R70 in the roof. And it's almost an easy payback. And the second one is you can hire people to do what's called a blower door test. They seal your front door, they pressurize the house, and you're looking for where air goes through. Because you can have a nice toasty house, but actually the winter wind will come blowing right through and you barely feel it, and all your heat is going out through the walls. And so a blower door test identifies areas for infiltration leaks.
And so I'm just thinking, this week, we've had all of this news about these dreadfully high gas prices, and we just heard from two major utilities here in the Commonwealth that rates will be increasing. And so that increases the pain for most people. I mean, I don't think that's why you all did it, certainly, but as more people feel the pain of energy costs, do you think that is going to get more people interested if the sustainability argument doesn't?
It will, but it's driving people from fear, in a sense. And I guess I could say that I'd sooner drive it towards something better. I think it's a better alternative. There was an article in USA Today a year ago about a couple in East St. Louis, Illinois, where their January bill had been $600 or $125, February was $600, and in March it was over $1,000 for their little home. And the wife had to sell her wedding ring. He had to take a weekend job to be paying the utility bills. And the question is, who would want to live in that house? And it's going to happen elsewhere.
Yeah.
And rather than waiting for it to happen, I think people need to say, I need to do something, but can we do something where we end up with a better quality of living than before? So we're creating opportunity, which is a little like what happened with the fire.
Right.
Here's a chance to do something where maybe I'll be happier after the fact than I was before the fact.
So insulate inside. What about outside? What might we do?
Easiest thing that you'll hear about, which is very common now in the Southwest, is xeriscaping. Grass, xera,
Okay.
X-E-R-A. Grass lawns, grasses are native all over the world. Grass lawns were developed by Louis XIV so he could play croquet. And it was high maintenance.
You mean we've been chasing after these all these years because some guy wanted to play croquet?
That was it. And then it went to it was a sign of wealth. It went to the English manor houses. It came over here for the South Lawn plantations. And everybody thinks, well, if I have a house, I should have grass. Well, grass lawns are nice for walking on. So if I want to play croquet or badminton or something, fine. But if I don't need to walk on it, use ground covers. There's a bunch of things you can use that are gorgeous. Yeah. They flower, they take no maintenance, and they don't use up the water.
Native to the area anyway and do so well here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've covered the site wherever we're not walking with that, and where we have a park on the site, then we do have grass.
Right.
So outside, I would say that would be number one. And also try to terrace it so the water has a chance to soak back in.
Sure.
And if you're repaving a driveway, go to a permeable. You can get permeable concrete, you can get turf stone, so the water starts soaking back in.
These are great points because they do speak to what you were talking about, Skip, this idea of taking advantage of the opportunities. If you have to replace your driveway anyway, you might as well take a look at some of these issues. One of the places we know we're starting to pay a lot more attention is the food we eat, not just from a health perspective, but certainly recently, again, with cost. It's something people are paying a lot more for their groceries. So what about that perspective?
Well, one thing I don't think most people know is that by the time food hits a plate, the average has traveled 1,500 miles. So if you talk about cost, the more you can buy local, the better. Grow it in your backyard, it's even better. But it's making sure that you think about buying local as much as possible. And also buying organic, because most people forget that fertilizers are made out of petroleum products.
Great point.
In Hampton Roads, you have farmer markets in a lot of places.
We have lots of them now.
And they're pretty much all organic. And there are 3 community-supported agriculture organizations that you can Google and get that way, and they're pretty much organic. And
this is community-supported agriculture, such an interesting thing. You essentially sign up with one of your neighborhood farmers, and then once a week they bring you a big basket of whatever's coming out of the ground. It's a great opportunity to try something new because I don't know that I would try some of these vegetables unless somebody put them in a box and said, well, there you have it. And you paid for it, so try to find something interesting to do with
It's
it.
also better quality for less money.
It's a great point, yeah. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is all of these different ways that you can be more sustainable, because certainly it's not just a question of cost. It is a question of so many of the other issues we've been talking about the care of the earth and the circumstance in which we find ourselves. And as we have often said, you know, you can get involved in very interesting conversation about how we got here, but the point is we're here, so we need to try to figure out what to do about it. So let's talk about what's on the horizon in terms of products that may be out there. Do you see anything exciting, Amanda, out there on the horizon that will be coming, that will make people's lives a lot more sustainable?
Anything from, I think, biodegradable dinnerware, like for this past 4th of July, a lot of people were coming in asking, you know, well, do you have any of the, you know, the corn plastic cups or the sugar cane paper, as an alternative to the paper plates?
Got it.
People are trying to have greener weddings and are trying to incorporate these items. I think that is a big trend. And also just the reusables in general. I see so many more people now at the grocery store with the reusable shopping bags, which is great.
I do too.
I love
think
it.
They ought to give them away, though. I mean,
yeah.
they keep selling them. I think the grocery stores need to give them away.
Well, at Walmart actually is. If you bring in
That's
some of your
true.
plastic bags to recycle, I've heard, I haven't
Yeah.
experienced this yet, but I've heard they will give you one.
Yeah.
So that is good. Those are really popular.
So all of these things are coming along with time, and I suspect as well, you know, you would like to think everybody does it for very lovely and altruistic reasons, but the fact of the matter is, this is a very big buzz topic right now, and so you are starting to see a lot of conversation about it, and a lot of retailers, you know, jumping on board with it as well. Skip Stiles, I know you're passionate about wetlands, and I'm guessing that what Stu and Trina are talking about in terms of advocating ground cover, that sort of thing, is important when we think about wetlands.
No, it does. A lot of development creates such a pervious surface that then runs right into the wetlands and into the bay. And to the extent that you can do the kind of site planning that they're doing, that you not for the whole development, and then each house, and then the water reuse and the rest. It's exactly the kind of thing that you need to basically clean up the bay.
And people have bought the garden atriums for all kinds of reasons, and you have more that you're working on now, and probably a lot of interest.
I guess I hate to say it, but number one reason had nothing to do with sustainability. Number one reason is aesthetics.
It just
Everybody
looks
that's been
beautiful.
there, they walk in and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it really takes your breath away, because it's so different than what
And
you're
that's been
accustomed to.
consistent with everybody.
Yeah.
If I'm going to pay a mortgage on a house, I have to really want to walk in the front door and enjoy it. And the people next door to us, for instance, that were interviewed for the Virginian pilot article, she said, when my husband and I go and visit friends, we get back in our car, we look at each other like you can't go back, because I can lie in bed and watch the moon going over, and it's a much better experience.
So it really is not just sustainable, it really is something that really connects your soul to the world around you.
I think you have to, and I think in order to be sustainable, you have to be sensitive to nature. You have to want to be sensitive to nature, and so the more you're close to it. There was a study that was done by Rocky Mountain Institute that if you put a plant next to a light switch, people actually be more conscious about turning it off. And I think the more we connect with the earth,
Isn't that interesting? Wow.
so the more the more we connect with nature, the more we realize how we need to protect it.
Wow. Well, Stu and Trina, thanks for being with us today. Your house is beautiful. Thanks for letting us drag our camera equipment all over it. Skip Stiles, best of success to you. Glad you didn't lose any photos in the fire. Very happy about that. And Amanda Mason, congratulations on Green Alternatives. Continued success with that retail venture. And I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought. We have devoted dozens of hours over the years to the environment, much of it targeted at what can be done about it, and not on that debate about whether man's had a hand in it or whether it's just the inevitable march of nature. And yet I still got an email a few months ago from an environmentalist accusing me of being on the take from big energy. Now, my first reaction was, look, if I were in anybody's pocket, I'd have a facelift, a better wardrobe, and a new car. But it's really no joking matter. The implication is that if we're not covering everything the way that this person believes that we should be, then obviously we're engaged in something unethical. Not only is that just plain wrong, it's also just a little bit of biting the hand that feeds you. Because I don't see a whole lot of in-depth environmental conversation on those hundreds of television channels up and down the dial. On radio, in fact, I hear one guy regularly use the term environmental wacko, which I'm guessing doesn't do much to advance mutual understanding. So public broadcasting, and WHRO in particular, those are a couple of the places where we do have regular conversations about what matters, like the environment. But if we're not doing it the way you think we should, don't assume somebody's palms are being greased. It may be that you know something that we don't. So enlighten us, and you can do that by mail at What Matters, 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23508. Electronically, we're at whatmatters@whro.org, or by phone, it's 889-9437. And I also hope you will check out our website at whatmatters.tv, and that's where you can comment on this or any other broadcast and watch past shows. We also have some online information for you related to some of the broadcasts that we do that you can research if you're interested in more information. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week for another look at What Matters.